All right, well, good afternoon, everybody. Good afternoon. Thank you for coming to the Department of Technology Vendor Forum. My name is Chris Cruz. I'm the Chief Deputy Director here at the Department of Technology. Before we get started, can everybody hear me in the room? Good? Okay, great. So anyway, again, welcome. One of the things that we want to do and committed to the vendor partnership that we have here in the state is really to do quarterly forums. And these quarterly forums are really a synopsis on what we're doing in the industry, what we're doing in the state, and some of the partnerships that we have with the vendor community moving forward, and some really updates and status on contract vehicles, and really some of the services that we're laying out and executing to a plan. One of the things we wanted to talk about before I get started here, and I see that the screen's frozen. When in doubt, improvise, right? Try it now. Nothing? No. There we go. All right. So one of the things we wanted to talk about before we got started is really our internal strategic plan to the department. A lot of you should have a handout that you received when you came in the front door about a roadmap that addresses one Department of Technology vision, one face, and one approach to doing business in the state of California. And really what we're doing, Amy Tong and I are rolling up as a synopsis enterprise governance across the state, where we have our agency chief information officers that are working with us, some of the constitutionals, that are drawing and addressing governance on an enterprise basis. And so part of that status really now is to look at how we leverage external governance with internal governance here at the department. So the department really started conducting a strategic plan, an internal plan about one focus. And really what we want to focus on is delivery, innovation, and quality assurance. Delivery as opposed to delivering services to our customers. We have the state data center that we leverage almost 350 services across the state to citizens, counties, other municipalities, as well as state government entities, but also delivering and driving innovation, whether it's our innovation lab, whether it's looking at open data, whether it's looking at open source and modular development, and some transformation of how do we look at a center of excellence here at the department and really driving technological capability across the state. So those are some of the things that we're working on with our year one strategic focus. We call it our North Star goals. Again, around organizational sustainability, around project approval, lifecycle, and procurement, and then also looking at information security. So again, at CDT, we're trying to integrate our policy organization with operations because we feel like if we have one approach, we can create more efficiencies and effectiveness than taking two parallel paths going down the road. So again, we wanted to talk to you about this because we wanted to let you know we have a 3-year focus to the end of the administration, actually 2.5. These are our core year one goals, and we'll talk to you next year about our year 2 and year 2.5 to 3 goals. But really what it is integrating this plan with the state's CIO's enterprise strategic plan moving forward and also that plan of the governor. So again, we want to finish strong, and we understand that the public-private partnership and having the vendor community a part of that is a big part of our success. One of the other areas that we wanted to talk to you about is procurement modernization. We had a vendor advisory board meeting back on September 1st. One of the areas the Department of General Services, my colleague here, Jim Butler, and Director Kim are looking at partnering with Amy and I on our procurement modernization. And when I talk about procurement modernization, I'm talking about procurement modernization over infrastructure, hardware and software. So one of our goals is to look at the NASPA terms and conditions coming out, also look at the leverage procurements that currently Department of General Services does, and also looking at CDT contracts moving forward. And what we want to do is streamline terms and conditions across the state the best we can. We understand that's a big concern in the vendor community, how we look at terms and conditions, and sometimes those are interpreted too broadly, and there's a lack of standardization across those core areas. So one of the commitments is to convene a vendor advisory board to provide us with recommendations on how we're going to streamline those contracts moving forward, knowing that there's 100+ contracts that are currently in place. So I wanted to whet your appetite on that. We're not going to talk in detail about that, but in the coming months, we're going to put a strategic sourcing strategist on this. We have Grant Thornton, who's currently working with us on a financial services strategy here at the data center. So we're going to ensure that we're going to effectuate the correct changes in the organizational structure for the state. So more to come on that moving forward. The other areas that you're also going to see today is really the integration of the Chief Information Security Officer with our statewide data center. I know we've referred to the statewide data center as OTEC, Office of Technology Services, but this point forward, Amy and I want to refer to it as the statewide data center, part of the California Department of Technology. We think that's important because, again, security drives infrastructure and the latest and greatest adaptive technologies. If we want to have the necessary security safeguards in place, we have to make sure that those two programs are integrated, and you're going to hear more about that today. Also, as well as I mentioned it briefly, we also have a financial services model that we're currently undertaking at the statewide data center to look at the way we cost allocate. We're 99.5% direct recovery in our budget across the data center. This has been in place for 25 to 30 years. So we're eliciting some recommendations now of how we can change that cost structure. Cost has been a big issue with our customer, as it has in the vendor community, because we have to pass those costs along in order to recover appropriately. So one of the things that we're looking at is what are some of the ways that we can do business more efficiently? Is it a combination of general fund expenditure? Are there different revenue recovery resources we can look at as we move forward? You know, we understand we're all fiscal stewards of the state, and to create those efficiencies, we got to work together. So one of the things that we're doing as a proposal is we have a budget reduction proposal in front of the Department of Finance that takes a look at some what I call across the border reductions to our services. That also includes vendor hosted subscription services as part of cloud and other services that we provide to our customers. So once that gets addressed by the Department of Finance, we'll publish some of those rates. Our commitment is to drive our rates down through efficiencies of technology, through standardization, and other methods. So again, I wanted to let you know that those rate reductions you'll probably be seeing over the coming months as well as the data center becomes more efficient and effective in how it delivers services. And finally, too, again, leveraging our governance structure. We think it's extremely important. Again, we have what's called an IT executive committee made up of AIOs and some constitutionals in the state on how we do business. And really that's a framework for communication. It's a framework for augmentation of policy development. It's really a way that we can streamline and create efficiencies. And I think one of the things you'll see in the coming months is that we're all working together to do what's in the best interest of the state. And maybe that's a common infrastructure technology platform moving forward. Maybe that's a common security framework moving forward. So it's very important that we lay that out and partner with Office of Emergency Services, the California Highway Patrol, and the Department of Military to, what I say, address our mission critical data needs across the state. In addition to, one of the areas I also want to let you know we're working on is a target enterprise architecture and vision for, again, the statewide data center. What we want to do is address, before we start building houses, that we have the necessary blueprints in place in which to build a house correctly, build it efficiently, and ensure that we have the right levels of services in place to execute change. So you'll be seeing in the coming months under the data center and Rob Schmidt's leadership, really an enterprise architecture and vision that we're going to lay out. And hopefully at the next technology day, I think in January, we'll lay all that out for you in terms of what that proposed vision looks like moving forward. So anyway, we have a very busy agenda. Again, we have DGS here, our collaborative partner, Jim Butler, who's the Deputy Director of the State Procurement Division, to talk about cloud-based cooperative contracts, terms and conditions for executive services, updates on service offerings on CalCloud. We're going to look at a different structure for CalCloud. We're going to talk about what that structure and framework looks like moving forward. We're really calling that CalCloud 3.0. CalCloud 1.0 was actually standing up an infrastructure as a service on-prem a couple of years ago. We had another revision last year called CalCloud 2.0, which talked about adding some additional services and enhancements to that particular effort with IBM. And CalCloud 3.0 really is moving us in another direction of being more vendor agnostic and being really a hybrid cloud service provider moving forward. So Scott McDonald, our Deputy Director of our Cloud Services area, is going to talk more about that. And then we're going to talk about our vendor-hosted subscription services, where we're at in terms of some of the flights on those in progress, our information security footprint and how we're laying that out, the partnership with our 4-quadrant partners that I just talked about, and then CalNet III. What are some of the contract vehicles and provisions that we're laying out right now and enhancements you have moving forward? So again, we hope to be more clear, more concise on these. We ask that really if you could table all the questions at the end, we can answer those for those in the audience and also on the phone moving forward. And we look forward to having a very constructive and transparent conversation. So that being said, I'm going to go ahead and turn the microphone over to Jim Butler, Department of General Services. Thank you.
Hello, everybody. hopefully you can hear me. They got me mic'd up, and I know we're maybe on camera too. I've got 3 things to talk about today. Our statewide contracts relating to technology, including some cooperative contracting we do with NASPA. Also, a new process that we're following in terms of how we award those contracts related to a Lean Six Sigma effort. We're going to talk about our Master Services Agreement, the relaunch we're doing on that, and then finally our terms and conditions. So we'll start with statewide contracts. The state of California participates with the National Association of State Procurement Officials, which is NASPO, in doing cooperative contracting. NASPO has launched through the state of Utah for most of this year a solicitation related to kind of X as a service, both infrastructure, platform, and software as a service. And the state of Utah has started to make awards. They've announced, as of last week, 7 awards that are posted to the NASPA website. They still have more to review. I presume that some of you represent firms who have either won awards or who are under consideration. The state of California evaluates all those awards to see whether or not we can adopt them, and the process is called the participating addendum process. What we'll do is we'll look at each of the awards that's been made. We'll evaluate whether the competition was conducted in a way that meets California standards and whether or not that contract would conflict with any other existing contracts in a negative way. California almost always adopts NASPA contracts at one level or another. The lowest level at which we adopt a NASPA contract would be for locals only. Sometimes we do adopt contracts for cities, counties, and schools to use, but not for the state. That would be if there's a conflict with our contracts. But typically we'll adopt them for use by everybody, including state agencies. We've started to evaluate the 7 contracts, and we're working with Ellen Ishimoto here at the Department of Technology to look at it holistically, not just from DGS's perspective, but also from Caltech's perspective, to make sure that these services are the kinds of services the state needs. As we go through those contracts, we'll announce awards through our broadcast bulletin process. If you're not getting the broadcast bulletins from DGS, it's very easy to sign up. Just go to dgs.ca.gov/PD, and you can go to the area that talks about statewide contracts, and there's an easy way to sign up. And if you are registered for this conference, we'll send you the links after this so that everybody can get there. I encourage you to get the broadcasts because it tells you about all the new contracts, all the new policy initiatives we have, as well as public meetings. So that's the NASPO contracts. We think that those will start to be awarded in the next year. So I don't anticipate any awards in this calendar year, but in January, February next year, I think we'll start to make most of those awards. Let me talk about our the new process we're following for statewide contracts. We did a Lean Six Sigma study of IT contracting for the state, part of an initiative sponsored by the Government Operations Agency and the Governor's Office of Business and Economic Development. And that's a process that's been going on for a couple of years to look at different, areas of the state operations and try to improve those. This year we did a project specifically on IT contracting. We did some benchmarking, found that on average our contracts for IT were going, for a statewide contract, we're averaging close to 2 years, which is obviously kind of preposterous because IT is never the same after even 6 months, sometimes even 3 months. So we've done some work, got a lot of input from subject matter experts within the state, as well as talking to some of you in the audience and other members of the supplier community. We rolled out a proposed 90-day solicitation process for new statewide IT contracts. These are predominantly commodities. These are not the project-based contracts that you see from the State Technology Procurement Division. These are DGS statewide commodity contracts. Well, how in the world, Mr. Butler, are you really going to do a procurement in 90 days? You may be asking that question. The answer is that we're going to stop solutioning during the procurement. We're going to front load most of the requirements gathering and the requirements vetting. We're going to start publishing our solicitations prior to the procurement starting for feedback from the supplier community. Typically, you'll see in our other bids that we would issue a solicitation, we get feedback, we get questions, we get complaints, maybe even a protest of requirements, and we would have to iterate, would have to do versions and addenda. And an addenda typically takes, one addenda can take typically between 30 and 90 days just to turn one rev of the contract around. If you have a bid that has 8 or 12 of those, you get a 4-year procurement cycle, which we've actually experienced. So we're going to front load the requirements vetting outside of the procurement process. Hopefully we'll nail down a set of requirements that everybody's mostly happy with. No one will ever be, we'll never have everyone completely satisfied. And then we'll go into a procurement process where we believe we can actually do advertising, evaluation, and award within 90 days. Our first solicitation that will follow that model is for statewide storage, and you'll see that come out early next year. There actually are 2 other solicitations coming out before then that will follow more the old process. I think those are copiers and PC goods. But even with those, we're making some changes that we hope will get those bids down to more like a 6-month process. And we want your feedback as we go through this. We want to get it right. We believe that these can be a lot faster. All right, and then the final area I wanted to talk about is related, well, let me talk about our IT MSA first. We have an IT MSA, that's a contract with about 150 contractors. It's predominantly a staff augmentation contract. Agencies use this to do small projects or to augment staff on existing projects. The predecessor to this contract over a 5-year period is something like between, I think, $50 and $70 million. This contract, since its inception, has actually been on a clip of between 3 and 4 times as much volume. So we've been very pleased. We found that departments really like it, and we have a really large base of suppliers that are participating in it. And we get good rates. So there's a lot to like about this. That said, there still have been some issues. We found, for example, that departments won't use it if they're going to have a very long project because they're not confident that it will be available to them in the 2nd, 3rd, and 4th year of their project, because the awards made under this existing contract expire when the underlying contract expires, which I think is in about a year and a half, 2 years. There's also been an issue with the number of classifications we have. We have a limited number, I think 6 or 7 job classifications that have proven not to cover a lot of the needs that we have, especially when you're getting into more of the cloud implementations. And so that's been an issue as well. And then finally, there is no ability under the current contract to reset prices. So the pricing we got when we took this out to bid 2 or 3 years ago is pretty hard to sustain for a lot of suppliers. So we're hoping to address each of those issues and some others in the new contract. We're going to have more classifications in the new contract. We're working with SMEs across the state. And before we go out to bid, we'll roll out the solicitation like I mentioned before. We'll get feedback, hopefully from you and the folks in the industry, to tell us if we have the right classifications. Awards under this can survive the expiration of the contract. We'll allow for, so hypothetically, if the underlying contract expires in 2021, an award made on the day of expiration could still survive for up to 3 years after that, so that folks can use the contract even very deep into the life cycle of the contract. We're also going to allow for a price reset. So we'll have a mechanism on an annual basis. We'll use a consumer price index through the Department of Labor, and we'll track a specific IT job classification or classifications to help us understand how much the underlying labor rates have moved, and allow for suppliers to request an increase on some kind of periodic basis, either annually or twice a year, depending on how much the rate changes. We think these are features that will help us out overall. I know that I've been asked before by some of your colleagues to take the price competition out of this bid, and I'm not sorry to say, but I am going to disappoint you by saying there will still continue to be price competition as part of this. If we don't have price competition, we can't have a contract. This is kind of the basic speed law here. We will have a broader range of prices that we will allow for an award. I think in the last contract we had a 15% above median bracket, and if you were 15.1% higher than the median bid price of your category, you were not going to get an award. We're going to increase that, although I won't say how much. You'll have to wait to see the bid come out. Something we did last time that we will do again is we're going to run this under a 6611 negotiation. We don't want anyone to be kicked out because you got your administrative requirements wrong. You submit your bid, you forgot to sign a form, you forgot to check a box, we'll tell you. We'll give you some amount of time, some reasonable amount of time to fix it so that we're not competing on your ability to fill out forms. We want to compete on your ability to provide IT solutions and talented staff. So that's the summary on the MSA. We believe that will be coming out in just the next couple of weeks. Intended for October. It's feeling really late for that. I got to check with my team and see if we're still on track. But certainly within the next 2 to 3 weeks, you'll see that bid hit the street. Let me finish up by talking about terms and conditions. About 2.5 years ago, we published our first set of cloud T's and C's related to software as a service. Those have been very successful since then. Earlier this spring, we issued terms and conditions for platform and infrastructure as a service. In each case, we got feedback from the industry. We took that feedback to heart. We updated, modified, in a sense, negotiated with the industry to create these terms and conditions. We're actually still in the process of doing version 2 of the software as a service T's and C's. We solicit feedback in the summer. We've had to make some changes to the data definition, so we'll be coming back out with that set of terms and conditions in the next month, and you should see what we've produced on that. Overall, we're very proud of our cloud program. The state's been able to buy cloud for a number of years under what we think are agreeable terms and conditions. So with that, I think we're taking questions at the end. Is that correct? All right, I'll go ahead and turn the time over to Skamida.
There we go. It's stuck again. Okay, good afternoon, everybody. Okay, CalCloud 3.0, I know we went, as Chris mentioned, we went through 1.0, 2.0, now we're 3.0. So what really does that mean? Well, we've stepped back a little bit and kind of developed a new strategic plan with our working together with our CalCloud partners, IBM, and really what we need to do to take it to the next level. And so really our primary objectives really is to provide new serviceabilities that meets our customers' IT demands and enable the IT to really respond quicker to those customer needs. Increase the automation and integration into other data center platforms. Focus on the development of staff with the skill sets that are driven by the new disruptive technologies. And increase focus on providing the utmost protection of the state's confidential and sensitive data. And so basically what we've done, what we're in the midst of, is we're actually beginning to transition a lot of the support activities from IBM over to the state staff. And this has been a plan kind of from the beginning. The plan always was to come back to the state. What we decided to do is transition some of these support activities back a little bit currently. So, and just kind of bring that expertise to the state staff. We felt it was a good spot, good time to do that. In our ability to move forward, start maturing some of the systems. However, we'll continue our partnership with IBM, so it is kind of a shared support model as we move forward. And really as we develop this new roadmap, we work with our key stakeholders, our customers, on really where do we need to get next? What technologies are they looking for? As we have DevOps, becoming new, some of the open source technologies, what are our customers asking for, and what do they need to get to the next level? And then obviously build an enterprise portal. So we have our CalCloud IaaS portal. What we want to do is really get more orchestration into other platforms within the data center and create that one-stop shop for the customers to be able to access other services within the data center, maybe such as mainframe services, and more of that automation throughout the data center to really strengthen that customer experience. And then one of the most significant changes that we're actually looking at is more of a hybrid community cloud service offering. Presently what we have now is our private, or what we call a community type cloud. There's a lot of value to where it's really all on premise, and it really has the kind of the value to the private cloud solution is. Change the batteries. I guess some of the strengths of it is really kind of the integration that we get the compatibility, some of the systems where it may be a little tougher to do in the public cloud environment. And then to ensure some of the confidential and sensitive information throughout the state really isn't secure, and then we have a lot of visibility on how that is protected. And then, maybe it's environments where it requires increased support from some of our IT staff to kind of help them walk through some of the configurations or maybe manage the system itself. Some of the advantages of the public cloud is really, it's probably great for test and dev. It helps you get a system up running really quickly. You can take advantage of some of the less expensive, storage, other type of features within the public cloud, and then maybe it's ideal for maybe some of the non-confidential sensitive data. So what we're looking to really do is trying to take the best of both worlds and really bring them together to really look for the cost and efficiencies for the state and our customers. So we're really looking, taking a step back, take a holistic approach to the consumption IT mesh and the right solution to the right job, and achieving, really that high-level support, that still that added security, but really kind of quantify cost benefits and really keeping the cost down for the customer, trying to lower that price point as we move forward. But however, like I said, one of the key components here really is that security around the data, and based upon the classification of the systems, ensuring that our state's confidential and sensitive information, our mission critical systems still have the right protection and controls around it. And so one of the things that we're really looking at and expanding upon is really more about high availability between data centers. We've put in disaster recovery solutions. Our customers are looking at more real-time failover between the data centers. So as we have a failure in one environment, they really want zero downtime. So we're looking at the re-architecture of the system across our data centers to really provide that functionality. And then specific service level agreements that really meet the functions of their business. And then, like I said, more support for DevOps to really facilitate that agile development as they move into the operation. And a lot of customers are really looking at containerization. We have several projects going on right now. We have our own innovation lab that we're using that. And we've seen some other customers where they really want to work in these sprints and really start bringing up the systems very quickly in small sprints. And then we're looking at more as a platform as a service. And then as we continue, we're really looking at even added more layers of security to that environment. So throughout the data center, just putting additional layers, additional monitoring on, just to ensure that security within our data center. And then more services like the database as a service, quick provisioning database, whether it be Oracle, Microsoft SQL, other database instances. And then more of the network automation that exists within our current cloud environment, maybe some of the other services, but giving the customers the ability to quickly be able to provision some of the network firewall rules, and some of the things that in the past have maybe created some slowdowns and bringing these systems up quickly. And then, of course, improving on our database backup and recovery services. And then, like I said, really be able to move towards a public-private hybrid cloud service with the ability to even move workloads between the two environments and maybe ensure disaster recovery as a service as well. And then also we're looking at is secure cloud exchange, maybe network exchange between those public cloud providers to really kind of, once again, ensure the security of that data and maybe reduce some of the network costs associated with going out to the public cloud. Now, I'll pass it off to Richard.
Hello. Can you hear me okay back there? All right, so on the left side is all of our current service offerings. I'm not going to go over that in detail, except that I'll talk about a couple of services that we're decommissioning. And that is our cloud email service as well as our on-premise email service. So our cloud email service we plan on decommissioning June 2017, and our on-premise email service will be decommissioned by December 2017. So it'll be migrated over to the Office 365 email services. So we have a slew of services that we're actively developing on. The first one is e-signature and digital signature. As I talked about the last forum, we had to work with the State Controller's Office, Secretary of State, to be able to pass legislation for this technology. They put forward a bill, and it was signed by the Governor's Office in late August. We put this out on the streets, and all the winning bidders have been notified last week of if they got awarded or not. This should be available for our customers to start procuring this service by November 1st. The HR tools, this has been a huge dilemma for us as far as moving forward. I know it seems like it's been going forever, and that's because there's been two different sets of issues here. The first one is from the customer's perspective. They have an immediate need for things like time and attendance and learning management, where departments as big as EDD have still been doing their payroll by paper, and they're trying to automate this process. But from the State Controller's Office as well as CalHR, they're trying to look at this from a strategic direction, that all of these things are interconnected. So from an employee perspective, there's an employee will work for multiple departments throughout their career. And so today, if they took a set of training classes in one department and they go to another department, those training classes, that information doesn't get sent over to the other department. Okay, so it's really up to the employee today to remember all the classes so that they can use that for future promotions. And, depending on which classification you're in, your payroll may not transfer over. Case in point, I was a student assistant at Social Services as well as EDD, and those credits didn't come over with me when I came over to the Department of Technology. And so in order to get credit, I have to go back to those particular departments. Okay, so those are some huge issues that we're trying to mitigate. We do not want to have departments go out and implement standalone solutions. We want this to be a very useful tool for both our state employees as well as our departments. So that's kind of the dilemma. There is a governance board, HR governance board, that's meeting on this month, and we hope to have a direction in place so we're able to go forward. Storage. This is another one of those things that we changed based on the feedback we got from you, the vendor community. If you remember, we started off with one IFB, and it was a procurement for both on-premise and off-premise storage. And when we had our bidders forum, the feedback from you were saying that we could not equally evaluate both solutions. So it was determined that we should split these procurements into two, an off-premise and an on-premise solution. And so the off-premise has gone forward as it was originally stated as a secondary storage solution. We morphed the on-premise solution to be more comprehensive. What I mean by that is that it's not only dealing with secondary storage, it's dealing with all the different tiers. Today, OTEC, we don't have a lot of different service offering for our customers for storage. It's basically RAID 5 or one type of storage is a one-size-fits-all. And as you know, that doesn't really meet all of our customer needs. So we're trying to envision this to have a lot more service offerings so that we have more options for our customers. It's going to be tiers 1 through 4, including flash storage, and it's not only going to be accessible through the network, but also through fiber channel. So not only we can consume it through managed services, but customers that's on our floor, that's in TMS, as well as in their facilities, they're able to obtain this storage through the network. I know that I've held up personally several storage procurements we have for an open systems storage solution like 1.9 petabytes worth of storage. So I plan on using this solution, hopefully, to be able to do the rest of our procurements from this point out over the next few years. And I know several other customers plan to do that also. Business intelligence. We had an RFI on the street. We received those procurements or those bids last week, I think, or 2 weeks ago, and we got a lot of useful information. We have some clarifying points that we're going to be reaching out back to the vendors that bidded on those or provided feedback. And so based on that data, we're hoping to be able to award a contract first quarter 2017. Disaster recovery, we've, in our customer representatives, there's been lots of turnover. So we haven't progressed in this set of requirements as much as we had liked. So I don't have a target date of when this will be out, but we are actively working on this. A couple future VHSS services. One is legal case management. And last week, one of our customers, a small customer, he has a couple small departments. They're asking to see if we're able to take on their desktop support. So, you know, we may be trying to leverage VHSS in doing some of those kind of things. So there's more to come. Chris had talked about earlier that our rates, we're doing a reduction in rates. Those are scheduled to be in effect January 2017. And once the Department of Finance approves those, then we'll be able to publish those. So with that, I'll introduce David.
Good afternoon. Can you hear me in the back? All right, great. I'm Dave Langston. I'm the branch chief of our security management branch within the data center and within the department. And today I'm going to cover some current activities we have going on within the data center and within the department, and tie it into a vision from a security perspective. Okay. So one of the key security programs that we have ongoing presently is, we refer to it as the Security Monitoring Expansion Project. And this was really based and built on the effort that we made with CalCloud. As many of you know, CalCloud was implemented utilizing the controls and processes of the FedRAMP framework that the U.S. government has put in place for U.S. government cloud services. And part of the requirements of that FedRAMP framework was certain types of security monitoring and really monitoring and processes that was required to meet the FedRAMP standard. In implementing that with CalCloud, we gained a lot of experience using a managed security service provider to partner with us in that capability. And we're now moving to implement that managed security service provider across the data centers and the statewide network that OTEC, or the Department of Technology, manages and offers today. There are three focused areas initially around security, information and event management, vulnerability management, and intrusion detection and protection. And we are in various stages of transitioning from our existing technologies and capabilities to those provided by the MSSP, working in partnership with them. As you can see on this slide, our intention is to stand up these services by the end of this year and work through the tuning process during the first half of next year. And for any of you that are aware of what it takes to make these kinds of services operate, there's a lot of tuning that's required as you move forward. This is being done also in conjunction with the CalSIC efforts that were referred to earlier, that partnership of Cal OES, Department of Technology, CHP, and the military department. One of the key focuses of the CalSIC is around threat intelligence and threat oversight. And the information that will be developed out of this monitoring capability will be part of the data feeds that will be going into the CalSIC effort. And then this begins and creates a platform on which we're have a vision to put in place a broad security operations center and security operations function for the department and for the customers that we serve within the data centers. And you can expect to hear more about us and our intentions around the security operations capability as we move forward. So that's what I have this afternoon, and if you have any questions, I'll certainly answer them at the end. Thank you very much.
So starting to feel we're like more at a cybersecurity conference here. To kind of continue with that theme, as Dave said, we have the CalSIC group, and then it's a partnership we have with the California Office of Emergency Services, the California Military Department, California Highway Patrol, and the California Department of Technology, where we're all kind of coming together trying to bring different expertise, as far as the threat analysis, incident response, policy, and oversight, and how we could best accomplish that through the state. So one of the primary focuses that the California Information Security Office is actually working on right now is policy simplification. I worked at a previous department for about 6 years as the ISO over there, and I think one of the most challenging things that we had to deal with is really trying to conform to the policy, and really it was kind of all about NIST and everything. And our requirement really was to, evaluate your systems based upon NIST, all your mission critical systems and your risk management program. And I think, as many of us know, there's several hundred controls within this framework, and a lot of them are very confusing and you get different interpretations of those controls just within your own, probably your own security shop. So what we've done is step back a little bit and try to, how do we make that a little bit more achievable and measurable? And so what we've done, and we're right near the end of completion, and I said the change has been occurring quick. Like right here, we show 28 security objectives defined. Well, I have to say, just within the last week, we had to add 2 more. We found ourselves a little bit deficient within privacy. But we're pretty much done now. We're getting ready to do our final vetting process. And really, when we talk about security objectives, we're talking about, okay, what do we really need to look at across the state that really kind of addresses some of the higher risks to the state, and things such as incident response, making sure that we're doing secure application coding, making sure that we're doing vulnerability assets, maybe asset management. So we've identified what those 30 high priority objectives are, and as we go through the years, we'll actually expand upon that. But really, what we're looking at right now is to get the state, let's get to a baseline level that we can all meet, something that's all achievable. And we call it, and then as we have additional regulatory and compliance requirements, it doesn't mean you stop there. It means if you're dealing with PCI, you still have to meet those PCI requirements. But we at least want everybody down to, okay, let's all at least get right here across the state, and we'll measure against that. And we have our audits programs. We go out there, we will evaluate and audit the departments based upon what those objectives are. And so what we've done now is, based upon the cybersecurity framework, we've taken identify, protect, detect, respond, recover, and we've mapped those objectives back to those functions within the cybersecurity framework. And then what we've done now is, we haven't abandoned this. What we've done now is take those controls and we've actually mapped them back to the specific objectives. So it's the incident response, some incident monitoring, the incident handling. So what controls specifically map back to those? And so that's what we're asking departments to do now, and that's what we're actually measuring against. And we should be able to, I've already had a couple inquiries by some of the vendor community on really what those controls are. Like I said, we expect to finalize that this week, and I should be able to share some of that information out there. So where the actual departments will be focusing a lot of their security efforts on. And then one thing we're trying to do, Jim spoke to it a little bit, is when we start looking at security terms and conditions and trying to, we've got a lot of feedback, and when we say, well, it needs to be NIST compliance, what does NIST compliance really mean? It means a lot of different things to a lot of people. So we're kind of really looking at really what the requirements should be around that. Should we be using NIST? We should be using something like ISO, which actually has a certification. NIST is kind of, seems more a little gray area right there. And then we want to make sure that, within those software as a services, those different platforms, that there are security breach procedures actually in place by the provider, that we're really going to look at things like indemnification, oversight of security compliance. So make sure that we have the right controls within those terms and conditions, but they are clearly defined, something that is really achievable throughout the industry. And with that, I'm going to move on to Barbara.
There we go. Good afternoon. Can you hear me back there? Good. Okay. Can you see me back there? Oh, wait a minute. Left my notes. Okay, so this afternoon I have some updates on CalNet. I'm the Deputy Director at the Department of Technology, and I'm responsible for CalNet and the statewide network. So today on CalNet II, on CalNet II, just a reminder that structured cabling, that we're not allowing any new orders after January 29th, 2017, and that all the orders must be completed and invoiced by January 28th, 2018. And as many of you know, like services are now available on MICTA from a couple of different vendors. Also on equipment orders, they must be fulfilled and invoiced by January 28th, 2018. CalNet III. So some new things to update you on. Category 10 for satellite. Those contracts, the paperwork is being signed as we speak, and so those contracts are almost officially awarded. There's two under Category 10. There's 10.1 satellite voice, and we had 4 vendors that competed for those contracts under satellite voice, and under 10.2 for satellite data, there was 2 vendors, and so those contracts are also being awarded. Then still under CalNet 3, we have a refresh of Category 3 and Category 5, which is in progress. Category 3 is for Metropolitan Area Network, or Ethernet, and 5 is Managed Internet. As most of you know from, I think, the last vendor forum, we're doing the refresh. We re-released the original solicitation with a goal to generate more competition, greater choice for our customers, and of course, lower pricing. The original RFPQ and PMAC solicitation was used. Our incumbent vendors had the choice to participate or not, and that we'll use the same evaluation methodology that was established for the baseline in the original award under IFBB back in March of 2014. The bid evaluations for 3 and 5 are in progress, and we are still moving forward with an anticipated contract award date of December 2016. On Category 14, this is for broadband internet. We anticipate the pre-solicitation will be released in early November. And for that, there will be This is centered around a low-cost option for those areas that have been traditionally more difficult for the telcos to provide services with dedicated internet. There's going to be two categories. 14.1 will be non-terrestrial based high-speed internet that may include satellite and wireless, and 14.2, which is terrestrial based high-speed internet and can include DSL or fiber. See, and then category 1.6, this is our legacy category. It's around Centrex, and this category we're moving forward with a 1-year extension. The current contract expires in 2017 with 3 1-year extensions, but we wanted to move forward with an extension to take it out through June of 2018. This will allow our E-rate customers to begin processing their E-rate submissions. And with that, I'll turn it back over to Chris for questions.
Great. Thank you, Barbara. All right, before we take questions on the phone, I wanted to find out first if there's any questions in the audience. Take those questions first. All right, Vicki Vernon up here in the yellow.
What is the reference made to a legal case management with the HSS?
Mm-hmm.
Could you know specifically what you mean by that? Is that chain of custody? What is that?
Okay, the question for those folks on the phone through the webinar was, what do we mean by legal case management in terms of chain of custody or other specific areas? I think the area that we were focusing on, there's a product called ProLaw that's used for case management. And so one of the areas we're trying to look at is how we invite other organizations that provide similar services. How do we put a vendor hosted solution together for ProLaw? ProLaw has been put in place as a legacy-related application for many years. You're welcome. Any other questions? In the audience? Oh, we answered them all? Wow, incredible. Yes?
For the IT general provisions, is it a standard that those are used in all IT procurements, the ones that were negotiated and published in 2014?
Yeah. The question on the phone for IT general provisions, the ones that were published in 2014, that we use those for all contracts, correct? Yes. The answer is yes.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
On the CalNet II update regarding structured cabling, it was mentioned that like services are now available on MICTA. Will there be something published that is indicating the requirement to use MICTA, or will any leverage procurement be allowed for structured cabling?
I'm going to phone a friend here. So, question on the phone for those on the phone had to do with the CalNet contract and structured procurements using the MICTA agreement. And are there any other contract vehicles possibly that can be leveraged?
Okay, I don't know. I see Mary Ann standing up in the back, so I'm going to really defer it to STPD because they're our procurement division.
So currently we only have the MICTA has the structured cabling. Those were just this last September 30th, and we don't have any current plans for any other procurements at this time for structured cabling.
All right. Any other questions in the audience? Okay.
This question's for Barbara. Barbara, on the CalNet III awards, can you describe what role the California Government Enterprise Network plays in any review and approval of the POs to CGN office? Or if it has a role, sometimes when they weigh in on an executive branch agency's purchase order, they'd like to execute off of CalNet III, and what the role of the CGN office is in that regard. Is it go through that office for review and approval before they can see themselves taking these steps forward? What's the trigger there?
Hey, Barbara, can you come up and answer the question here? And that way I'm focused on the webinar for us to see. The question has to do with basically the CGN contract. I won't re-enumerate all of that information, but we'll answer the question.
Okay, so I think Ralph, what you're asking is, we have CalNet, which is mandatory for a state executive branch, and then we have CGen, which is mandatory also for our state executive branch. So those customers that in the state executive branch that purchase off of CalNet and also are required to use the statewide network, it's both. So they do have to go through CGen. They have to be working with the department in order to procure those services. Is that the answer you were looking for back there, Ralph? Okay, yes. They go hand in hand.
Thank you, Barbara. Any other questions in the audience? No? All right, we're going to go to those questions on the webinar. So it looks like we only have one question, and that is, any changes in CDT plans, policies regarding subscriptions to data services of different sorts? Well, I can tell you right now, we've been revisiting and revising a lot of our plans and strategies moving forward when it comes to looking at open data, when it comes to looking at other services that we're providing. So more to come on that. I probably can't give you specifics, but for example, we've looked at augmenting AB 2408 as a statute. We continue to work on that as the original revisions. And AB 2408, for those that may not know, is a consolidation mandate that was signed 6 years ago when Terry Takai was the state CIO here. We're continuing to make revisions to some of our policies to bring them into compliance and bring them into 2016 and really look at other performance metrics moving forward. So that being said, we're looking at all of our policies and strategies as well as even revising the CalCloud strategy. So one of the revisions you'll see coming up and that we'll report out at the next quarterly meeting in January is to what Scott McDonald spoke about. There'll be more policy revisions on how we interpret cloud in the state and the types of services that our customers can purchase. But we are trying to drive to enterprise standardization, so most of our policies will be around enterprise standardization and ensuring that we're managing to a centralized security framework moving forward. All right, any other questions in the audience? Any more questions on the phone? Well, again, I wanted to thank basically the CDT deputy directors at the statewide data centers for the information. Also want to thank Jim Butler for coming in, and thanks all to the vendor community. It's a partnership, and we look forward to meeting again. Thank you.